Hello aspirants, looking at editorials and question bank for 26 November. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is appointing a Lokpal. So this is regarding the Lokpal issue and the appointment which has been stalled because of absence of leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, which is one of the members in the 5-member committee, selection committee for appointment of Lokpal members. So the Supreme Court had reprimanded the center on this delay, and the editorial here again argues that the appointment of Lokpal and the selection of a designation of leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha can be done by the speaker. There is nothing in law which restricts the speaker from designating Congress parliamentary party leader as the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha. So this can be hastened. There is no need for amendments to and waiting for any ordinance also, as the Supreme Court had also suggested. So we have discussed this whole issue on 24th November news. So the background of Lokpal, what is Lokpal, the entire history and the present case. So this is 24th November news video which you can refer for this whole issue. It's the first news covered there. So I'll not repeat this whole thing again here. But yes, the only point here that has been put forth in the editorial, it says that it was a ruling by G.V. Mavlankar, who was the speaker of first Lok Sabha. He had cited what is the leader of the opposition for the functioning of the Lok Sabha. So that was a definition given there. Only law which provides for a definition of leader of the opposition is a 1977 law on office holders' salary. So there is a salary being paid to the leader of the opposition too. So this is the law. So what is stopping the government from presently declaring leader of the opposition by the speaker? So speaker has that power and he can use it and hasten the process. So the delay can all be ended. These are images which I have picked up from the same 24th November news. So I've pasted them here again so that you can go through them and you download this PDF file too from the website. So just for your reference, but you can refer for the explanation to 24th November video. The next editorial in the Hindu newspaper is the gathering crisis in Seoul. This is regarding the huge public protests on the streets against South Korean President Park Geun-hye, whose close aide was arrested on charges of illegally exercising authority over critical government decisions. Also, it is said that she had allegedly taken donations from huge business conglomerates in South Korea for 2 charitable foundations. So these are the charges against her. She has been dismissed, plus also many other aides have been dismissed, but then the protests continue and there are charges of corruption against the president as well. The opposition party has also put in pressure, and there are cases that she may be impeached to, the president of South Korea. Also the new president which may come up may be even the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who was from South Korea. So we'll have to wait and watch what happens. But this link between the government and the conglomerates here are called chaebols. The term is given here, you can see, chaebols. So these chaebols are business conglomerates, the term used for them, huge business conglomerates. So it is also said that famous South Korean companies like Samsung and Hyundai, they emerged because of government support. So there's a strategy in South Korea that the competing industrial groups are picked up as winners by the government. So this helps in support for the government too and support for these companies as well. So this has now backfired and the corruption charges have been put forth. So we'll have to wait and watch what happens in this case too. Plus also the another issue which is South Korea is facing is because of the THAAD. THAAD is the missile system which will be anti-ballistic missile system, means countering ballistic missiles. We have already discussed what is anti-ballistic too. If you have been following all videos regularly, then much of repetition can be reduced. So THAAD is a missile system, anti-ballistic missile system to protect country from ballistic missiles which will coming into a country, attacking it. So it will fire upon these missiles and destroy them in space. So that's the objective of an anti-ballistic missile system. So this will be installed in South Korea by USA to protect it from North Korea. So North Korea has developed nuclear missiles and it has gone completely rogue. It does not listen to countries, and USA has declared it as a rogue state who is using extortion as such, that threatens that it will not use nuclear weapons if its if its demands are fulfilled. So it uses it as a threat. So these North Korean missiles are a threat to the world according to USA. So it needs to be countered, and that is the reason why South Korea will be used as a launchpad for this anti-ballistic missile system. But China opposes it, saying that USA is trying to establish itself in its domain. So this is Chinese domain in Asia. China is a neighbor here, you can see. So it does not want third missile system here. So this is the whole issue too. So now we have to wait and watch what US President Donald Trump, who is bound to become the president of USA, already been elected, he'll take over soon. So how will he go ahead with this issue? That we have to wait and watch. But this is the case before South Korea also. Its economy is not doing well. You can see this is THAAD, terminal high altitude air defense. That is the acronym THAAD. And this is using kinetic energy to destroy this missile. So this is an incoming threat coming in, which will be perceived, and this missile will be launched from a launcher and destroyed in space through kinetic energy, through the impact of this launch, not because of any other warhead which it will carry. So this kinetic energy used is beneficial because it will ensure that if there is any nuclear component which is part of the missile, it will not explode. So all this will be taken care of. So this is the entire THAAD missile. It was originally planned and developed against Iraq's Scud missiles, which were used during the Gulf War in 1991. So majorly it is designed, built and integrated by Lockheed Martin Space System, which is a company in USA. So Pentagon now is planning to install these in South Korea. So we'll have to wait and watch. In 2016 July also they have agreed to deploy these THAAD missiles. So let's see what happens. It has not been installed yet. So let's wait and watch. So these are also the issues which South Korea faces. So more than the political turmoil, these aspects are more important and you should know about them. Then we look at the question bank. So based on the lead article, one question which has been framed is, what is India's nuclear doctrine? Should India adhere to its no first use policy, or is it strategically important to drop this policy? Clearly state your stand with justification. So this is of course an article which is going against dropping no first use policy, but this idea was put forth by Union Defense Minister Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who said that no first use policy should not be declared. And he said, this is my own personal view. We should have it in our domain to decide when to use and when not to use. We'll use nuclear weapons responsibly, but not declaring a policy as such out in public so that countries know that we are not going to use it. So that gives them added advantage. Why to give that? So those were his points of view, and he clearly stated that this is my own personal view, but then it has its weight and the discussion of course initiates. So India's nuclear doctrine was issued in 2003, and the key principles of this nuclear doctrine are these four. One is that we'll build a credible minimum deterrent. Credible minimum deterrent basically means that we should have sufficient nuclear weapons with us as against nuclear weapons of our opponents. So if, for example, say Pakistan has some amount of nuclear weapons, say X, then we should have at least X and a little more. So that is called deterrent, that if that country attacks, we should have sufficient with us to counter attack. So that is called deterrence. So this is with India, Pakistan, even between USA and Russia, this deterrence issue is there. So this results in countries trying to go higher and higher because we don't clearly know how much Pakistan has. So based on our estimates, we try to have more than them or as much as them, and that results in Pakistan also having its own estimates and going and increasing its stockpile. So all these problems happen. But yes, one issue which is of course on paper is required is that we should have credible minimum deterrent to counter attack. So this is a declared policy. Second is no first use policy of nuclear weapons. So we will not use nuclear weapons as first, means we will use only them in retaliation, means if we face a nuclear attack, we will use nuclear weapons. But then nuclear retaliation to the first strike will be massive and designed to inflict unacceptable damage. Means once we have been attacked by nuclear weapons, the nuclear retaliation which will be there will be complete destruction. And then finally, the last point is no use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states. So if it's a non-nuclear weapon state, will not use nuclear weapons against them. But if they are using biological or chemical weapons against us, then we have the option to retaliate using nuclear weapons too. So these are four major points under India's nuclear doctrine of 2003. So these were all developed even after the second nuclear test in Pokhran, 1998. So this no first use policy was spoken of by even Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Credible minimum deterrence is also what he clearly stated. So this is required that we do not, there is no arms race which takes place. So India has to ensure that it is able to go ahead and counter nuclear threats and coercion. Because why are we developing nuclear weapons? The justification given for 98 Pokhran test 2 was that if countries are having nuclear weapons with them and that puts coercion on us, that they can threaten us with that. So we require ourselves to also have nuclear weapons to counter that coercion, to counter that pressure which they put on us, the threat which they impose on us. So that is why India developed nuclear weapons. We do not want to engage in any arms race. We don't want to be up than others. So it's not an arms race which we are trying to indulge in. India clearly stated this. Plus also this is a point, no first use policy is a point based on which we got exceptional waiver from nuclear suppliers group in 2008 too. So with US support we have already got a waiver that we are allowed some form of concessions from nuclear suppliers group. We presently want full membership of NSG, but a waiver has already been given in 2008 based on exceptional status of India, where it has a responsible nuclear policy, including the no first use policy. So that is also there in 2014 also it states that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has clearly stated that we will not change the no first use policy because BJP in its 2014 manifesto before the Lok Sabha elections had declared that it would study in detail India's nuclear doctrine and revise and update it to make it relevant to the challenges of current times. So it had also said that we would maintain a credible minimum deterrence in tune with the changing geostrategic realities. So this was BJP manifesto. So of course this triggers a question whether the government would change the no first use policy. But then post election Prime Minister had clearly stated we would not. And now in 2016, just few days back, Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar had said that we should not bind ourselves to no first use policy. He questioned, why should I bind myself to it? He says, I am a responsible nuclear power and I will not use nuclear weapons irresponsibly. We should just state that. We should not clearly state that we are not going to use it first. But what is the loophole in this whole statement and stand will be clearly put forth in this article. So we'll see that. So what he also stated, this is my personal opinion, that India's nuclear doctrine does not change. I'm just voicing my own personal opinion. So let's see the whole issue. Of course, the debate arises then. So what is the no first use policy? So no first use policy would mean that we have our own nuclear triad. So nuclear weapons and air-based, sea-based and land-based, we are developing them. They are not up to the mark here, but it's a work in progress. We have already achieved, we discussed about Arihant also, nuclear capable, indigenously built submarine, nuclear submarine. So we are building up on that. China has developed nuclear weapons and it declared its no first use policy in 1964 itself. So it has that stand. Pakistan has also adopted a policy which is against no first use. So it says Pakistan has a first use policy. So first use policy means we can use it for the first time. So Pakistan maintains that its nuclear arsenal is exclusively for against India as well. So we are targeting India. That is also clearly stated by Pakistan. So it wants to counter not just India's nuclear capability, but also conventional superiority. So this is its target clearly stated. So should India also become a first use policy state just like Pakistan? That's the question. But India has a doctrine called cold start doctrine, which it denies officially. But cold start doctrine basically means that India will deploy its all conventional forces against Pakistan in case of a war to ensure that Pakistan does not use its nuclear weapons. So this is clearly put forth because now see, the use of nuclear weapons all depends on deterrence. Deterrence basically means that you are deterring your enemy from using nuclear weapons. Means the enemy knows that you have enough nuclear weapons or enough weapons for that matter to. Nuclear deterrence is with respect to nuclear and deterrence is in general that the opposition knows, the opposing country knows that you have enough weapons to counter attack and completely destroy them. So if they use it for the first time, if a first policy is what Pakistan's stand is, if it uses nuclear weapons against India, it would be an irresponsible decision because once done, the retaliation which would come from India would result in complete destruction of Pakistan. So in this case, the destruction will be of Pakistan, not India, because India has sufficient nuclear weapons plus the attack which Pakistan does in first use too, should be such that it should be able to destroy all nuclear capabilities of India. If it is not possible for Pakistan to do that, then India will of course retaliate and destruction will happen to Pakistan, not India. So Pakistan has to act responsibly, and this all depends on deterrence. That how much we are able to deter them, stop them, threaten them through this arsenal which we have with us. So this is the whole issue. The whole issue stands on deterrence. So this, and of course Pakistan's armed forces is, all these nuclear weapons are in the hands of the military. The political side is weak over there, so we have to keep that into consideration too. So Pakistan should not act irresponsibly. So what we need is nuclear deterrence, not change our no first use policy, because that brings in imbalance in the nuclear doctrine. It is also known that North Korea, just we discussed in South Korea issue, that North Korea has nuclear weapons and USA opposes it, but it is not conducting a nuclear attack on North Korea too, because even USA, a huge nuclear power, is not sure of how much nuclear weapons and where North Korea has these nuclear weapons to ensure their complete destruction. Because if USA fails to do that, then the counter attack which North Korea would do on USA would result in huge destruction, because USA, North Korea has developed weapons. It claims nuclear missiles which can even attack USA on its western coast. So this has to be taken into consideration. So when USA is not countering, when even Palestine attacks Israel, which is again a nuclear weapon state, Israel is not countering Palestine with nuclear weapons. So these powerful nuclear weapon states are also not sure that they can use them for the first time. Then how can India be sure of using them for the first time on Pakistan? And how can India, a responsible nation, put forth such ambiguity in its nuclear policy? So that all is highlighted. So implications of change in this policy as is put forth, you can see that declaring a first use policy would create an incentive for either side for preemption. So that means if both sides, Pakistan is also having first use policy, India is also having first use policy, means anybody can use it for the first time. So if this threat is there, then it is like use it or lose it. If India also says we have a first use policy, then Pakistan will be further threatened. Then it would say before India uses it for the first time, let us use it. So that brings in much more instability. So we should act responsibly. That is very important. Also, it says that even if we have a good early warning system too in place, but the distance is so less that by the time we come to know about this too, it will be quite late to launch a warning, a nuclear weapon. So this is also not going to work. So only way to ensure that stability is maintained is by having no first use policy in place. So India has to act responsibly. That is required. It requires strong political will to ensure that nuclear deterrence is upheld. So if nuclear deterrence is upheld and Pakistan understands this, then we have no threat and we don't need to change our no first use policy and bring in ambiguity. So that is it. You can write an answer based on it. You have to clearly state your stand with justification. Thank you so much.